it's Ateez here. Welcome to my channel where today I am discussing a certain musical pet peeve of mine that has been a huge issue in K-pop in the past few years, but particularly for boy groups, chant choruses, because I feel like they've been giving noise music a bad rap recently. I hear a lot of people say that they don't like noise music, but I think a lot of them actually mean they don't like chant choruses or empty choruses because there's a huge difference between this, and this. But they are all considered noise music. The specific type of noise music that I see people complaining about the most frequently and the most consistently are songs with a chant chorus, so I wanted to take a deeper look at that. But before we get into that, look, it's everyone's favorite time during the intro. You know what time it is. Disclaimer time. This is going to be a fairly subjective video, so if I bring up one of your favorite songs as one that I don't think works, don't take it personally. I'm actually going to throw some songs that I personally do like in there too, because I know that there's a ton of people out there who don't like those songs. Also, I'm only including songs by groups that exist in my playlists somewhere, so be assured, I'm not here just to hate on groups. I want to examine why this type of chorus is aversive to some people, but not to others, and hopefully start a conversation about music. So with that out of the way, let's get into it. Okay, so first and foremost, I should probably define what I believe a chant chorus to be, because my personal definition probably doesn't match a lot of yours. So obviously a chant chorus includes chanting, shocker, I know, but the lines kind of blur when it comes to how much chanting needs to be present for a chorus to be considered a chant chorus. I don't think anyone has ever explicitly laid out those requirements, so I'm just going to start by saying a chorus that is entirely yelling or talking falls into this category. I don't think I really need to give examples for this one since it's fairly straightforward. I also am going to include choruses that are mostly yelling or talking despite having some singing in there, because I feel like if the chanting is what's driving the chorus, then it's going to fall in line with a lot of what I'm saying here. I'm going to leave the word mostly purposefully vague and let you decide what exactly that means for you, but here's a few examples of what I think would fall into this category. You might consider some of what I put later to be a reach, depending on your personal opinion, so just a heads up on that, I guess. There's also versions of chant choruses that come off as melodic, but I still consider chant choruses because of the delivery. There's a clear pitch that they're aiming for, but either they're uncaring about if it's hit exactly, they're incredibly shouty with it, or they're just doing something else with the delivery or the production that makes it significantly less polished than if they were truly singing. Again, kind of a judgment call, but here's some songs that I think fit this bill. At the party, Johnny, Trish. At the party, Johnny, Trish. Come on, come on. 들어와. Pass the mic, pass the mic, pass the mic. Send my home in the jungle. Send my home in the polar. 지금의 나의 매점. Now, I'm not going to go through and sort each song that I mentioned into one of these categories, but you'll notice that I'm a lot more forgiving to the ones in the bottom categories than the ones on the top, just because I feel like they provide a little more variation, but also because they're usually paired with some other redeeming technique that I will get into later. For now, let's get into my gripes. Here's the most pervasive issue in chant choruses, or at least the complaint that I see the most. A lot of people say that these choruses are just boring and unoriginal, and I'm inclined to agree a lot of the time, especially when that's all there is to a chorus. While there's a bit more nuance to this conversation than most people care to get into, the defining aspect of a chant chorus, the chanting, limits the variation of vocals. Based on that principle alone, yes, chant choruses are going to lack the creativity that we've come to expect from K-pop choruses unless they make up for the stagnant vocals in some other aspect of the song, such as the instrumental or another outstanding section. And while that is very much possible, it's still risky and getting less and less common as writers and producers get careless in their rush to meet the ever-accelerating deadlines of an industry that chews up and spits out new content every minute. Basically, while chant choruses can be used in fun and innovative ways, they're increasingly being used rather as an excuse to not write an actual chorus and expedite the songwriting process. This greatly hurts the quality of the chorus and makes it seem kind of lifeless. It's missing that vitality that sparks interest because everything is stagnant in nature.
When I rebel, no fall back. 이게 우리만의 방식. 좀 위험해 drop out. I'm a savage.
It's like writers and producers think that they can get away with this by just cranking up the volume dial and calling it noise music so it fits with the trend, but that's not actually the core of noise music. Noise music isn't just supposed to be loud. It's about experimenting with different types of sounds and fitting them together to compose something new, which is almost in direct contrast to the lazier chant choruses out there. My personal distaste is less with those issues because I do believe there's a way to make it work regardless, even if it is a very difficult balancing act. But rather, I take issue with the fact that it ends up disregarding and wasting the vocalists of the team. You have, at least 3, 4, 5, sometimes even 6+ people in the group who are specifically there to sing. And what are we doing here? Not letting them sing in the main section of the song? Yeah, okay, that's a choice. Because not only does it keep them from being at the core of the song, but it also tends to shrink their actual vocal time in the line distribution. They'll get taken off of or be given throwaway lines in the chorus, but the rappers will still get their full verses. We're talking cutting at least a minute of the song from the vocalists, which usually make up a good majority of the group, and expecting them to share the pre-choruses, bridge, and maybe some verse parts if we're lucky enough to get actual singing in all those sections. Depending on the song and depending on the group, it could be as bad as splitting a minute between 7 people. It just annoys me so much because you easily have some of the best vocalists in the world within K-pop, but this chant chorus trend is robbing them of the opportunity to showcase their talent. That's why I get so frustrated with NCT in particular, because they have what would undoubtedly be some of my favorite voices in K-pop, but they almost never get to just sing. At least not in the chorus of their title tracks, and it drives me nuts. I understand that they usually have a couple sections where their vocalists get to show off, but I feel like it isn't enough and it's not as significant if it's not the chorus. Let me put it this way. I almost didn't listen to Two Baddies at all because I heard the chorus somewhere and I rolled my eyes at the fact that we got another NCT chant chorus.
Two baddies, one Porsche. Two baddies, one Porsche.
I hated it, and I swore to never listen to it. Well, luckily, I stumbled across the pre-chorus somewhere, and my jaw literally dropped because of how amazing it was. It didn't even sound like the same song to me. I mean, I wish I could play the whole thing, but alas, copyright exists. I ascended. Doyoung's 0 to Beck on the highest speed was looping through my head the whole week, and I almost never even heard it because the chorus was such a turnoff for me. And the second pre-chorus is entirely different, but just as good. Point is, people base their judgments of entire songs off of choruses alone. All the time. And if your choruses are all unappealing chants, then no one is going to care about how good your vocalists sound in the bridge because they won't even get that far. And not only is this robbing the current generation of vocal moments, but it's also affecting the newer and upcoming ones. A lot of people like to complain that vocalists in the 4th generation and beyond aren't as good as the ones in previous generations, and I think this chant chorus trend has a lot to do with that, along with the significant uptick in lip syncing, but that's a video for another day. Because if your vocalists aren't going to have to perform vocally complex lines, then why would you train them to? I almost wonder if companies are purposely using chant choruses as an excuse to cut back on training costs. If you can survive in the current climate, which focuses more on intensive dancing than vocal performance, then why not cut down on vocal coach expenses and lock your idols in a practice room where they can improve their own dancing expense-free? Regardless of if that actually is a motivation, I think consistent chant choruses are contributing to the decline of the vocal skill of newer idols in general, because I am aware that 4th gen has some stunning vocalists, like I ult Ateez, so trust me, I know. But I also think people forget that your singing ability is a lot like a muscle. Use it or lose it. Even if an idol is trained incredibly well, they're going to lose a lot of their precision if they never get the opportunity to use it. And if you think that's a stretch, I can promise you it's not. I can even use myself as an example here. I was a pretty good vocalist back in high school. I made my state's all-state choir, which means I was chosen as one of the best, I think 600 was the number. I was among the top 600 vocalists in my state, so I think I have enough grounds to say I could sing well. And then I went to college, and I never joined a choir or did any kind of organized singing. It's been 3 years, and I can still sing, but I struggle a lot more with runs, avoiding tension on difficult notes, controlling my vibrato, and flipping seamlessly between my head and chest voice than I did before. It hasn't greatly affected my overall ability to sing, but my neglect of my voice has nearly eradicated all of my skills that made me actually impressive. And those are the exact skills that someone like a K-pop idol needs if they want to actually stand out as a professional singer. So I was talking about how Two Baddies has two great pre-choruses that sound entirely different from the chant chorus and that I consider to be the redeeming parts of the song. But what happens if those parts aren't there? Because the reality is that most groups won't be able to make verses, pre-choruses, and bridges that sound different enough to make the song dynamic, but still similar enough to sound like the same song. The result is either a song with very little direction, that direction typically being loud noise to the same noise but even louder, or you get a song that is all over the place in its efforts to create the variability that would redeem its chorus. By using a chant chorus, you are essentially throwing yourself onto a tightrope because of how difficult it is to balance the other sections surrounding it. One slip up and you risk a lot of your audience falling off. Alright, now starting with the transition out of my negative Nancy state. This one isn't a definite yes or no, it's a maybe, just because of how subjective it is. It really depends on the person here. Putting emphasis on the instrumental is a tactic with very mixed outcomes. This approach is responsible for a lot of dearly loved songs and a lot of vehemently hated ones. It is truly the widest spectrum that you will find here. And just to prove it to you, I am going to quickfire a ton of songs at you, many of which are either divisive or iconic, but all of which fit here. So have fun.
I'm on the next level. 저 너머의 문을 열어. theboyz come 눈을 뜬다. Like I do. Let's post in hashtag moon. 뛰어다니는 노래 그래 이
Quite the wild ride, huh? Those last three in particular are notable because mcnd, Stray Kids, and Blackpink have pretty much made this strategy their entire brand. While the last two are much more popular and receive a lot more hate because of it, I think that their approach accounts for the excessive passion that exists for them on either end of the spectrum, whether you love or hate their music. When your entire musical identity depends on the single crutch that is your instrumental, people are either going to cling to that crutch with everything they have in order to stay upright, or curse it if they lean in the other direction and end up falling over. And unfortunately, we see the latter pop up when groups rely too much on their instrumental to the point where the chorus sounds empty or devoid. It gets even worse if people find the instrumental unappealing or even annoying in its own right, and then no one has anything even remotely likable to latch on into the main section of the song. One of the best examples of this is Lapillus's debut. In other words, yes, you sometimes need actual lyrics because not everyone can be Blackpink. I will say, though, that there are a couple instances where this technique tends to work significantly better, the first being in rock-adjacent tracks. Because when you think about it, the concept of a chant chorus kind of stems from rock music. Like, you have singing and screamo, and I feel like chanting exists somewhere in the middle, so it makes sense that songs with a more rock-based instrumental just gel better with chant choruses. The other instance where instrumentals tend to work better is when they have a very pointed tie to the title or the vibe of the song. And I mean very pointed. The prime example for something like this would be Stray Kids' Domino. I mean, come on, it's perfect. But if we're looking for something a little less on the nose, then I would like to bring Goosebumps by ONF to your attention. The low lurching synths just sound like they popped out of a futuristic Ghostbusters. They nailed the vibe. But again, that vibe might not be for everyone, which is why chant choruses that rely on their instrumental so heavily are pretty hit and miss. This is, in my opinion, the best way to use a chant chorus creatively because I just think it's more artistically reliable than being like, well, hope you like some other aspect of the song. While this doesn't automatically mean I'm going to like every song that uses a chant chorus in a subversive way, I can at least appreciate the sentiment here because it indicates that this was a decision made with thought behind it. For those of you who are fans of anti-drops, think of it as a similar concept. Just instead of going from 100 to 0, you're going from 50 to 150. The chanting is used as a baseline that is purposefully more boring and bland in comparison to what's coming next, and it works best when used in tandem with an instrumental switch. We might disagree on what counts as a baseline or what counts as subversion, but I'm talking pretty generally here. My personal favorite example of this would have to be Ateez's Gorilla, just because I have a confession to make to all of my fellow A-teenies. I hated Gorilla's chorus the first time I heard it. For those of you who don't know, Ateez loves to do this thing where they upload a performance preview video that spoils at least the entire chorus before the actual comeback happens. Yeah, I kind of have a love-hate relationship with it. But I was watching the Gorilla one, and I was kind of vibing with the first verse and the pre-chorus, and then the chorus hit. And my legit reaction was,
No, God! No, God, please, no! No!
I just had this visceral moment of disappointment where I was like, why? Like, I know you're a noisy
more
group, but I
creative
never
than that,
thought
and
you
I
would stoop
know
low enough
it.
to have
You
a
have
chant
such a
chorus.
vocal line. Why are we making them just yell?
I was legitimately so upset about this. And then the second half of the chorus hit. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll stream it. Because the second half of Gorilla's chorus is where it really thrives and lets loose. The first half serves as a bass line for the second half and functions as a setup for the subversion in multiple ways. The chanting part is full of a ton of words. They're spitting constant consonants out at you while they try to get you to join their anarchist organization. The lore is wild, but there's a lot happening word-wise, whereas in the second half, there's next to nothing. It's just Jongho wailing on his sliding high notes with a single vowel. Things go from 100 to 0 with vocal rhythm, but 0 to 100 with, actual vocals, if that makes any sense. Everything opens up a lot more and just feels like a single defiant cry finally being let loose. But the instrumental actually does the opposite. The first half has a super steady instrumental with a relatively basic but slightly varied beat, the same bass line that opens the song, and this one synth that just sits on a single pitch and then goes up and sits on that pitch for even longer. And then, it goes up, down, down, and then repeats. And that synth is what drives the entire instrumental here. I'm pausing for copyright purposes, but while we're here, support Ateez's comeback on June 16th. So yeah, pretty stale and stagnant as far as Ateez instrumentals go. The more you listen to it, you're like, this is pretty boring for them. It's a lot more straightforward, but that's where the second half comes in. Here is where they flip what's driving the pace of the song. Before, it was those long, whirring synths that were setting a pretty slow pace, actually. But in the second half, the beat is what takes over. The consistent pounding of the doom, 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 doom cranks the song into double time, making it feel like the song just popped and released all of the energy that was being held back in the first half. Meanwhile, the synths go crazy to add a more complex melodic layer to accompany Jongho's simplistic lines. All of this together makes Jongho's two words here, if you can even count wa as a word, so much more impactful than they would be otherwise. I remember people going insane for this part when in reality it's not even impressive for him. It's just the shifts making it seem that way. And their next release, Halazia, does the exact same thing, but in my opinion, even better because they use a monotonous and intentionally relaxed chant to catapult into the electrically charged second half. It's like Gorilla was the test and Halazia was the refined result. Here are some other examples of songs that have done the same thing to varying levels with varying success.
Back in the game, son. 확실한 change. 지금 3, 2, 1 갇혀있던 흐르게 부셔.
머릿속에 맴 I'm in your head 네 머릿속에 더 파고들게 I'm in control Ring my bell 필요할 때 불러 ring ring 울린 소리에 번쩍 눈 뜰 때 두 번째 기회.
There's also a slew of songs that do this in reverse so that the chorus goes out with a bang, which makes them almost undeniably catchy, regardless of if you actually like the song. It's almost guaranteed to get stuck in your head at least once.
예쁘게만 하는 매력은 없는 애들과는 달라 I love myself 난 뭔가 달라
작살내게 녹지 마 내가 질투나잖아 마세르
On the way 우리가 만든 riot On the way Cause I'm a pirate yeah a pirate yeah a pirate yeah I love me
Regardless of how it's arranged, a half-chant chorus can be a really effective way of creating switch-ups that still fit well within a song. It fixes the disjointedness of doing switch-ups in entirely separate sections, while still providing the variety needed to keep the chanting interesting. No, because when I finally get to an Ateez concert, y'all are gonna catch me scream and break the wall at the top of my lungs at the end of Gorilla. There's just something about a final chorus that you can scream along to that hits different, and K-pop has known this forever. I mean, YG coined the party chorus how long ago? And look at all the la 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 and na 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 and yeah 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 and oh that exist in final choruses and tell me that they don't slap. I don't know what it is, but I just think that it scratches that oonga boonga part of our brains that's like, yes, chanting, I am excited now. I don't know. But while that's all fine and dandy, it gets even better when those final choruses are used to highlight the adlibs from the vocalists. It creates this nice background energy for the vocalists to soar above. Surprisingly, it was hard for me to find examples of this despite, remembering that it's like everywhere. So here's what I've got, but if you have better ones, drop them in the comments below. Of course, using a chant chorus to highlight ad-libs isn't limited to the final chorus. I mean, Chaeryeong's iconic lines will argue that for me. But it usually happens in final choruses more, and I think it tends to be more effective there anyways. So there's my ramble about the abuse of chant choruses in K-pop. This got so out of hand, my goodness. It's embarrassingly long. It's like my mind decided that we were going to make the video twice as long now that my upload schedule is only once every 2 weeks, but it's still terrifying when you're vaguely spacing out sections and all of a sudden you're staring down the 30-minute mark in your editing software. I swear, I sat on this for like a week with no idea where to start, and then all of a sudden I had 8 pages of content staring back at me. What happened? But that does it for this video. Let's end this thing. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts about this topic in the comments down below. Are you a chant chorus fanatic, or are you extremely opposed, and why is that? Are there any other trends that you see happening in K-pop music that you would like to discuss? I would absolutely make another video like this, so tell me if there's anything that you really want me to talk about. Also, if you liked the video, please drop a like and subscribe to the channel as it really helps me out. Thanks again for watching, and I will talk to you all next time. Bye!